progress.
I think recording is recording, and we're ready to start the meeting. I'll call the Scio Local Roads Committee meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. May 4th. And we do a roll call. Smith, present. Townsend, present. Kerry,
Here.
Groden,
Here.
Hubert,
Here.
Knol,
Here.
Sharma, not present. Shields, Walsh.
Here.
Very good. I'm hoping that you all got the advisory committee agenda and packet. Did anyone have any corrections or additions to this evening's agenda that they'd like to suggest?
I've got one.
Sure.
It's both to the agenda and to the township site. The agenda is showing Jillian Kerry as the secretary. The township site's showing me as the secretary.
I'm sorry.
At this point, neither is true.
Minor details.
Minor details. Secretary by committee at the moment.
I apologize, I don't know how to. Oh, who's still there?
In the,
Sorry? Or was the door locked?
there's a rock in
There's a rock in
Yeah,
it.
it was still
Oh,
there.
I can unlock it.
Well, I had unlocked it, so.
Oh, you did?
Oh, the door
Is
is
she,
open.
is she meaning to, into
Unlock
the
it.
Must
Zoom?
mean in the.
Zoom.
I think I just
Oh,
got her.
okay.
I don't show anyone else. Rakesh just joined us on Zoom. Thank you for coming. Glad you're here. All right, other than the secretary issue, which I can have resolved, does anyone have any corrections, ideas for the agenda, or are we ready to adopt the agenda?
Agenda.
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
I'll support.
All right, and a motion by Bob Walsh, Kathy Knol, support. Thank you. Vote of aye or approval?
Aye.
Very good. All right, again, the minutes of the April 6th Local Roads Committee meeting were attached to the packet, labeled as draft minutes. Did anyone have suggestions, changes needed to the draft minutes?
No.
I know that we're not seeing the image on the screens here,
Oh, isn't that interesting? I'm sorry. Strange. I've got the image on the screen here, and quite frankly, I did look up. This is not my strong suit. It was on cut here instead of auto. Auto didn't change that. Rakesh and Ian, can you see us?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
All right, so,
maybe that's the key point. And you have a recording.
yeah. I think we're
That's
there.
fine.
We
This looks like
can't
a
see you,
second recording.
unfortunately. I now have Rakesh and Ian on Zoom, as well as 5 other visitors. All right, is anyone ready to make a motion to adopt the minutes from the April 6th meeting?
You said you cannot see me? Is that what you said?
The April 6th meeting?
He is not allowed to be participating.
No, I know, Rakesh can see them, but Rakesh, you can't vote for.
He can't even participate.
Well, he can speak in public comment.
Public comment?
As a member of the public, he just can't participate as a member of the committee.
Okay, well.
I think we're still waiting for a motion to approve.
We are still waiting.
Oh, sorry, reading.
Not sure it's appropriate since I wrote them.
I'll move it.
Thank you.
I'll support.
All right, approval of the minutes, motion by Kathy Knol, approval by Jillian and Kerry. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Welcome, Patrick.
I forgot that there's a construction Z.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
All right, well, did you get the roads packet? So you've got the agenda and the minutes? Did you have any comments that needed urgent addressing on either one of those two?
No, I didn't.
All right, great. The next thing on the agenda was communications and correspondences. I made a spreadsheet which I attached to the correspondences we had because we had a number of them in the month of April. I've got 6 here, and a few people we've heard from more than one time. We'd had a discussion with Bob Groden about trying to come up with a solution for responding to people. Do you want me to read the names of the people who have contacted us, or do we just go with everyone's had a copy of their letters?
Well, I don't know that it does us any good to read the names of the people. What's more important is streets and
Yes,
who's who in the zoo for each street. That's my real question.
yes. I was trying to work off of the road advisory committee chart that I made that was attached sort of in the middle of your packet that told the date person who contacted us, their email, the road they were calling about, the specific condition that they were concerned about. Hoping that then we can add our responses to these and show how we're keeping up with the response requests. It looks like we had a request for Elizabeth Road, another one for Bandera, Liberty Hills, Salzburg Court, which is also Liberty Hills, Shady Oaks, which is Green Knolls, Park Ridge again, and Myrtle Avenue. If anyone needs copies of those, I've got copies up here on the desk. Are we ready to go to public comment? I've got a few people here that would like to speak, and we've got Will Hathaway with us who's going to help us try to figure out how we can resolve some of these road issues. I have a hand raised. I'm going to go to public comment. And Lloyd, would you like to speak?
Yes, please. Good evening. Minor, I'm sure. I was here at 6 o'clock because on the website it said that your meeting was starting at 6 p.m. this evening.
Correct.
And clearly it wasn't. Also, at the top of your agenda, it says local road advisory committee, and I don't see that on the website. Finally, in the documentation from Luke Hitter, it says that Vienna Woods neighborhood, mine, was solicited to have their roads redone. But I don't understand that because in late 1988 or 89, my road was paved because the seller of my home in 1992 had to pay off the assessment before our home could close. So I don't understand why my neighborhood was solicited by the township for an SAD when it already had one. And I know for sure that the Washtenaw County Road Commission comes in and does cold patch on my road. They did about 2 weeks ago. So I'm confused by that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Pam. I see a hand raised by Amy. I'm afraid I'm not going to pronounce your last name correctly. Would you pronounce it for me, please, Amy?
Sure. It's Milanovic.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I live on Park Ridge Drive, and I just so happened to be inspired to look up information and see that you had a meeting tonight and thought I would make a comment. I did look through all of the information that was sent out, and so I know that Park Ridge is something that's been discussed. I will say that I am one of many residents who are very frustrated with the situation as it was left before your taking it on. I realized that the township was going to move forward another SAD, and that never happened. And so I'm hoping that it will be a priority of this group to either counsel us as to how to get this done or to move forward with an SAD on behalf of the township, which is what the previous administrator had said he would be doing. I'm happy to give background as well at whatever time it's needed so that you might better understand the situation that led to where it is, which is kind of an impasse, which in my opinion really had much more to do with the process that happened rather than the actual opinions about people in the neighborhood. But I don't know when the appropriate time to do that would be, if at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I don't have contact information for you. If you'd be kind enough to email us so that we can add you to our contact list for our bridge.
Yep, is that RAC at?
Yes, please.
Okay, happy to do that.
Does anyone else?
We did get a letter, from Lisa Tool and Silver of Park Ridge.
Yes, we did. I haven't, I'm writing Amy in on Park Ridge as well, so we've got her. Actually, we've gotten 2 letters from Lisa Toolin. Is there anyone else up that wishes to speak? Amy, your hand's still up. Is there more? Nope, all right. I see no one else who needs to speak on Zoom. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in the audience? No? All right, we'll call the public comment section to close and move on to discussion segment. And since Supervisor Hathaway was kind enough to share his time with us, we would like to try and figure out a few things about the current SADs that are being done in 2022, as well as how we can, I guess, navigate citizens to create a new SAD now that the township structure is what it is. Will, would you like to speak?
Oh, well, I'm happy to work through the items you have listed here for discussion. I know Bob Groden had suggested that it would be helpful to have me here to participate in a conversation about how to field, I guess, I'm not sure how to describe them, sort of requests or inquiries or complaints from residents about road conditions. Maybe it's best to think of it as sort of like desired road improvements. So I'm happy to talk about that, however you want to use the time.
Well, why don't we take Park Ridge as a good example? I don't know where Park Ridge stands on any kind of schedule, whether that be a Washtenaw County schedule, or what do we have, $400,000 for Scio, where that is it in a project? And do we need to advise this neighborhood that they need to start the SAD process? Are we at that point? It seems like that's the last in the hierarchy, if I can call it a hierarchy.
Well, maybe that's a good way to do it, is to use Park Ridge as an example. I mean, each neighborhood, each road has its own situation, but there are some similarities. Park Ridge came, and Kathy, you were on the board.
There,
yeah, so
and
you
I was at the meeting.
So you can.
I remember it.
How many years ago?
I don't know.
Well, I think it was 2000.
Rice was still here.
Yeah, I think it was early 2019, I think, is a meeting that I attended. I was not on the board, you were on the board, but there was a hearing, and there were a lot of people from Park Ridge, and people on both sides of paving, and what happened, and this is an idiosyncrasy of Park Ridge, is that the road commission, when presented with the desire of the neighborhood to pave the road, said, oh, well, if you're going to pave it, then it has to meet our standards, and it has to be wider, and it's going to take out 300 trees. And that turned everything around, if I remember correctly, because people who had been supporting paving dropped their support when they realized that it was going to require tree removal on that scale. And change the nature of the neighborhood, really. So that stopped it. And I mean, in a nutshell, I'm sure there was a lot more to it than that. But now, the question is, what can be done that would be acceptable to the neighbors? Is there a portion of Park Ridge that could be done? Is it paving the parts? Because at either end of Park Ridge it's paved, but in the middle it's dirt. So maybe it's repaving the portions that are paved, and then somehow doing remediation on the portions that are dirt. Building them back up so that they drain properly, or it drains properly. Something like that. I actually talked with Lisa Toolin, and she, I think, had a good suggestion, which I knew I was coming here when I talked to her, so I said I would present it for her. She suggested that maybe the township could host, and maybe it's the Road Advisory Committee, could host a neighborhood meeting, invite people to come and sort of talk it through together to see where there might be common ground. Whether there's a portion of the neighborhood that wants to, move forward with a road improvement, if you could fashion an SAD out of that portion, even if the entire length of Park Ridge didn't want to participate. That was her suggestion, and I thought that was a good idea. This is, I think, what Lou Kidder used to do to start off an SAD, is that he would call a neighborhood meeting and sort of talk about it, what would be involved, what the options were, and then let the neighbors sort of work it through together and see if there was support for doing any kind of a project.
But is that saying that the Washington County Road Commission has no responsibility for that portion of the road?
No, they do.
They do.
Can I add, so the Washington County Road Commission, I attached it to the packet, actually has a bi-weekly meeting with minutes. And they have put stone on Laurentide and Park Ridge, respectively, the end of March and in early April. They are limestone patching.
Oh, so that's a patch.
Lisa's letter is April 19th, so I assume that's after they patched it.
It's been a while since I'm sorry.
It's okay. I wanted to add to some of what Will said. I recall that many of the neighbors who lived on the paved portions of Park Ridge were supportive of the SAD, and those who lived on the dirt portions, not so much so. And so it varied. The neighborhood was split. It was almost split in half.
Is it time to try again?
It may be. I mean, but I think that it's the neighborhood's responsibility to take those first steps and try to assess the level of interest in the neighborhood.
But that doesn't answer my question,
Well,
okay? You're already running right to the SAD.
No, I'm
What I'm asking is, who is responsible for that road? Washington is saying, no, we're not. What I'm reading in this letter is she talked to Kenneth Harrison, and he said, well, Scio Township's got to be involved for anything to be done. What does that mean?
Well, it's a local gravel road, so it's
Yeah.
50% township, 50% road commission.
Okay, so tell me what that means.
That means they're both responsible, so that the road commission does the maintenance, but if there's and also this is where it gets a little interesting, because it's breaking roads down by primary roads, which the county is totally responsible for that. Then we have our collector or connector roads,
yeah.
and that's where our township-wide SAD covers, and then everything else, except for private, let's just keep private out of there, becomes a local either gravel or paved road. So then that is, the road commission is 50%, township is 50%. So any type of maintenance and whatnot, so if they do an SAD there, it still has to be to the road commission's approval. That's why Park Ridge was turned down after they said, we're gonna take out 300 trees.
Okay, so in the scheme of the flow chart, Washington Road Commission has no primary responsibility, you're telling me?
Correct. So Park Ridge people or residents cannot go to the road commission and say, we want improvements, SADs. That's why they keep telling them to come back here.
Actually, they could. I learned that the road commission is a whole, it could be I don't know what the term is, the host for an SAD, the sponsor of an SAD. So in some SADs in Scio Township many years ago were done through the road commission.
Well, that was before the township took over.
Yes, so the norm now, certainly, you're right, is that the township is the primary sort of, sponsor of SADs and sort of has a process or had a process for it. But people could technically approach the road commission if they chose and asked to do an SAD through the road commission.
And then they would say, no, you go to the township. Because I have talked
I don't know.
There's the two different public acts. We have Public Act 188, that is for townships, and that's where we have the authority to do different types of special assessment districts. They have Act 242, or 246, sorry, one of them. So when I have talked with them, just studying everything, and so when I asked them about SADs, and I said Scio, they said, oh, Scio has their own program.
And we do.
Yeah, so the other thing regarding Park Ridge, and you may know, it's been a while since I've driven through that neighborhood. If I remember correctly, they have a drainage problem in some areas?
Yes.
Okay.
Fundamental issue.
So then, that makes it a little tricky because the road commission will not allow paving until drainage is taken care of. And this is why Liberty Hills failed. That's why my neighborhood, not that I want my roads paved because polo fields, people drive through fast, but because of the drainage issues. So there would have to be another, either an SAD with the drainage along with the paving of the road, and that drainage is expensive. The culverts and ditches and whatnot. So we've got to keep that in mind as well. We can't just say, oh, think about paving your roads with an SAD because, and Lamplighter is a perfect example of that. That's why they turned it down. The culverts and ditches and drainage, it boosts their SAD for the paving up to like $450,000 between like 20 households.
So Bob, back to your question
Okay.
about the road commission.
But paving doesn't necessarily have to be the final solution here.
Right.
If drainage is the issue.
Yeah.
It could be culverts, it could be substrate, and crowning, and
Exactly.
just like we did to East Delhi years ago.
But,
We did, okay?
I agree.
but didn't we say that the paving, given that it was going to be removal of 300 trees, wasn't favoured anyway? So
Right.
I suspect that's already off the table.
Well,
I need to go back to a statement you made there, because I'm still confused. Park Ridge, Wash Eng County have no jurisdiction, no nothing there?
No, they do. It's a local gravel or paved road, local,
Mhm.
is funded 50%, township and 50%, or a responsibility, 50%, road commission and 50%. So the township does not own roads,
Right,
but there's certain roads that the township is,
funding, kind of.
yeah, responsible, is that the right word?
So, we are not, the township is not inherently responsible for the roads, except if we choose to sort of step up to it. And so the township, back in 2012, had an SAD to raise money so that it had a pot of money that it could bring basically to negotiations with the road commission to partner with the road commission on taking care of roads. But it's the road commission that has the authority over roads.
Yes, you know what it is? It's the road commission, by law, is not allowed to, and these are not technical terms, to fund local roads. It has to be partnered with that's what it is, the township or the municipality.
Or anyone, really. I mean, the people on Park, one person on Park Ridge could say, I have a big wallet and I'm willing to partner with the road commission. And I think in theory is that, they could do that. As long as there's somebody to partner with the road commission on a project, and
Yeah.
then in terms of funding, it's taken care of. Now, in terms of, the neighborhood support, one person can't decide for the neighborhood what's
Right.
going to happen.
That's the confusing area still.
Yeah,
Like, with this SAD document that we're writing, in my mind it was getting clearer and clearer that if it's a private set of roads,
It's too bad Roy isn't here.
well, private roads,
that's under the.
they're responsible for their,
Keep that off the table.
yeah,
Right.
please.
That's a whole other kettle of fish.
Well,
Will, you were gonna say something before.
Well, I wanted to get back to your question about the road commission, and anything that is done with the roads has to be done to some degree with the road commission, whether the road commission's actually doing the work or some other contractor is doing it. Now, the 4 SADs that are currently underway are all being done by contractors other than the road commission. But we had to, in each case, run the plans through the road commission, get the permit, and they had to sign off and say, this is what we require you to do in order to, meet our standards for the roads. And so, for example, Wagner Ridge Court got into a negotiation with the road commission over replacing a broken culvert at the intersection with Wagner. And so that's part of the paving of Wagner Ridge Court includes replacing that culvert. And the requirement that they put on Park Ridge years ago was, oh, well, if you're going to pave it, you can't just leave it to the narrow little road that it is now. It has to be wider, and you have to take out these trees, and that's what broke that deal.
So if we suggested to whoever the spokesperson is going to be for this neighborhood, there's an alternative to paving, potentially, which needs some engineering work done, right? But we want to work with you to remedy the problems. Okay, so who pays for the engineering work?
They do.
Well, what the township did years ago, and this is, you guys can revisit this if you want to, but the township got stiffed a couple of times on the engineering, and that would have probably happened at Lamplighter if they hadn't done this, but they broke it sort of separated the engineering phase into a separate SAD. So it's a headache, and so if you guys wanted to figure out some other way of doing it, I would be open to it for sure. I don't know about other board members, but what it does, what the township has done is to say, okay, so there's a first SAD to have the engineering done. And you go through all the steps, all the public hearings, all of the approvals, and it's a SAD just to pay for the engineering. And then there's a second SAD, once you have that engineering done and everyone knows better what the full cost would be, or what the options are, then you have a second SAD that is for the construction costs. And that way the township was protected from a neighborhood saying, oh, it's gonna cost that much, forget it, we don't wanna do it. And then the township had to eat the cost of the engineering.
I believe that's covered in Public Act 188, it should be.
There may be another approach, but that's what the township has done.
That wasn't
Yeah,
in the
that's what the-
process that we had reviewed a couple of meetings ago. You need 2 meetings. One is to get together and the community has got to decide they want to do something. Then they get cost. Then they have to meet again and decide that they're willing to chin the cost and get a preponderance of the people to vote yes. I like what you're saying though about, because you need the engineering, especially since you got to get the road commission to agree. And paving is probably off the table if we're going to make them widen it, 300 trees and all that. But there's got to be something that can be done to remedy the situation. So you got to get the engineering done. Take that to the road commission and say, are you willing to accept this minus paving, right? And if they say yes, okay, you go back to the people. At that point, you got to get construction cost, project cost. And you got to go back again and say, are you willing to chin X $1,000 a year on your taxes, right?
I believe, doesn't the engineering, if I remember correctly, that it comes up with the construction cost in that process, or estimated?
Well, each situation is a little different. I think in Park Ridge, actually, and maybe there's some of the folks who are still watching from Park Ridge who could, or maybe Kathy, you know, I think some of the engineering was already done for that. I know there was a survey that was done, but in any case, some initial work was done for Park Ridge, so it may be in a different sort of situation than some others. And the engineering is essential, I think, when it's a dirt road that's being paved for the first time, which is what Lamplighter was, or is, or Daleview. That was crucial engineering there. But other projects like Westview and Wagner Ridge Court, the other 2 SADs that are about to go forward, are repaving. And so the engineering is less crucial because it's already an existing paved road and you're basically just grinding it up and replacing the asphalt.
Every street is different.
Yeah.
So it almost sounds like we have to take issue by issue or complaint by complaint and have this discussion and decide what we recommend and what advised to that group of people, yes?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and, you know, you have experience from before, Patrick, so maybe you can add, you know, from your perspective.
So, one of the things that's been on my mind, I'm going to take a step back. We seem to have two different kinds of emails that we're getting. One are relatively small problems that just cover a portion of a road, and then we got Park Ridge, which is massive.
Yeah.
And I think each of those require different approaches. But I think what we need to do is help citizens understand right away, when they go to our website or have a question, that we have something like this SAD piece, but a little bit different for those that aren't quite that bad. And say, this is how these roads are managed, and somebody will be glad to come out and see it, maybe not. I mean, that's another question, is how do we handle that? And then walk them through what the process looks like. And then I think we need to go out and meet, we all have to learn how this is gonna work.
Yeah.
And we need to go out to one of these neighborhoods, probably better to take the easy one first, but
I
just to
think
get up the
actually,
learning curve. But
like the document that we've been preparing, it might behoove us to write some of these scenarios into that document.
Yeah.
You know, your road's beat up, it's got potholes because it's been raining, it's a dirt road.
Yeah.
Here's what you do. Versus, there's some serious issues here with the engineering of this road.
Right.
Here's what you're going to do, how it's going to look, and
Yeah.
because
And
honestly,
if you want to do something about it, you need to find a leader, you know, all those
Yep.
things that we identify in there.
because if we're struggling to understand it, which I am,
Yeah,
then Joe Public is like, whoa,
right.
you know.
And I think in terms of understanding, we all have to go through this experience with a neighborhood or two to get up the learning curve and be more nuanced in what we prepare for the
But I
community.
guess, getting back just to the basics, and I think it's getting to your initial, Washington County Road Commission does basic maintenance. It's not, you know, they can tell you it's grading, it's dust control or whatever. What the routine is, we could probably ask them and they can say we try to hit roads X number of times. People don't seem to know that that's out there as a just fundamental, the county's gonna do very basic work. Second, we have the pot of money that we're going, you know, this year we've got some things and we're gonna try to then figure out priorities for future, where we can do above and beyond what the county does. And then third is, if you really want something unique for your group, you've got to get the neighborhood together to say, we're willing to fund it ourselves to do it.
Right.
And to me, that's really the three basic fundamental things. And the problem is, we don't understand each of the three, so the public understanding, it's not there yet, as I think we've all been beating.
Yeah.
I wanted to add another comment about the Park Ridge situation. The creation of the SAD district that occurs early on is critical. And with Park Ridge, it had been changed. I remember there were some neighbors who wanted to be out of it. And so they redrew the SAD lines, and it was very, very complicated.
If I remember, there were, depending upon what part of Park Ridge you were on, your road was pretty good. And you didn't really want to pay for the mess in the middle.
Yeah.
And so you ended up with a really divided group, which makes it impossible to come to a conclusion in an SAD where it's 65% or 70% or whatever we want.
You know, that you bring up a good point, because an SAD is a special assessment district that is to benefit the property owner. So somebody that lives on the corner of, is it Wagner?
Wagner,
Yeah, they're not gonna benefit by going into the town, or into the road, or the neighborhood, I mean, but those coming out would. So there's a lot to that part, and that's, when it comes to special assessment districts, there has to be a direct benefit to that property owner, a special benefit as well. But as far, I like what Bob had said, he broke the three different issues down, so to speak. But with a special assessment district, there should be a process, an easy process, no matter what the neighborhood is, here we do this, this, and this. And when I went through my special assessment district with the Drain Commission, they handed me a packet and I pretty much had to do everything. But there were meetings and they answered every single one of my phone calls, Scott Miller. There's also 2 sets of petitions. So the first one was for the engineering. We went through that. They sat us down, went through everything. Now, of course, if somebody doesn't show up, that is their, but they made it for the whole neighborhood to attend. And then they answered, this is gonna cost I think it was $250,000. And then the township's gonna pay for 35% because it was a health hazard, and then the county was gonna pay for a certain percentage, and then the rest, and then they broke it down by, the house or the parcels. So then after that, when we got all the price, which we decided that it was worth it, or else we wouldn't be able to sell our houses in the future, we went ahead with the second petition. And we only needed the same amount of signatures, and most that signed the first one signed the second one. So then we move forward. So that way, there's no surprises, and everybody is on the same page, and all questions are answered. And I think with some of the SADs recently, there's been a lot of going on in Scio, but, lack of communication. And then there's once, like in the Liberty Hills, they said that they signed the petition thinking that they were just going to get information, but they found out that locked them into an SAD. And a lot of neighbors were upset about that. So I want to avoid all of that, and I think all of us would want to avoid that as well. So I think that we could, break the different issues down, like what Bob said, and we can come up with a plan for each one. It shouldn't be that hard. I mean, we're all smart people, right?
Can we try another example? We have a
Sure.
Myrtle Avenue.
Oh, that's in my neighborhood.
Okay, it's a dirt road filled with very deep potholes. It's almost undrivable.
It is almost undrivable.
It is.
It's frightening.
Yes.
That's not the point.
Oh
This-
my God.
Yeah, I say buy a 4-wheel drive.
Hey, time out. Okay. So Myrtle Avenue has a whole different issue. Is the Washington County Road Commission responsible for these deep potholes?
Yes, they come through and they scrape, but as soon as it rains, we get the potholes.
So there's only so much you can do with a dirt road, and
Yeah.
in this time of year, dirt roads really, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's flat, the grass is higher, there's no place for the water to drain where all those potholes are. Just scraping and filling, it's gonna take something significant. And you can pick dirt roads throughout the township. Any place that's flat, the potholes are.
So the advice to these folks also is an SAD?
It could be. I haven't driven down Myrtle Road in a long time, but this is the time of year when dirt roads beg for attention. I remember last year I drove down Park Road, in the spring, and I was like, oh my God, I thought I was like in a moon rover, it was just like, so it's, there's only so far that you can get with that, what you were describing as the sort of normal kind of spring, summer maintenance, regrading, filling in the holes with some limestone. It's only gonna buy you some time. You really, eventually you're gonna have to sort of rebuild it and put a crown on it. Now, what you referenced earlier about the $400,000, so the recommendation from this committee to the board, which we put in the budget, was the full list of projects that were suggested by the road commission. And so those are roads where they're going to do more than just the normal maintenance. They're going to do what you were describing, sort of rebuilding the crown so that, and doing the drainage work, because just like the roads sort of eventually sort of lose that crown and don't drain, the ditches along the roads fill in. And so nothing's working after a certain amount of time. And so those projects are to sort of restore those dirt roads to functional drainage.
And that recommendation for this year came from, we've got like a rotating schedule of roads. So I think we said 7 to 10 years, they need this level of maintenance. So
Yeah.
that's where it came from. So, next year we'll come up with a different set of roads and it will keep
drove down
repeating.
Look, I think the suggestions either flow from the road commission to the
It
township, or they can
Yeah.
come the other direction. That's what I wanted to point out, is that
Yeah.
the road, you know, you could receive these requests and go out and sort of form your own list.
Yeah.
And then it can, you know, the recommendations for which projects the road commission and the township partner on could come just as much from the township as they come from the road commission. Anyone can go around and sort of point to the roads, you know, and sort of create a list. And in fact, that's what that's what the township was sort of working from with the SAD, the township-wide SAD that's drawing to a close. It started out with a list, and you know, the township has been sort of working its way through. One of the big things on that list that we haven't gotten to is Park Road, but that's one of the projects that was on that original list.
So you're talking about the township-wide SAD list, not the, these are the local gravel road. There's a list that the township, or the road commission goes through and scrapes. Is that what?
Well,
Which one are you talking?
there's kind of a merger of those two things. I mean, the township has a list that was created back, I know, 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
Of sort of, here's the things that we want to do and the priority in which we want to do them with this money that we're
Yeah.
going to get through this township-wide SAD.
But
And
those are only for collector or connector roads.
Yeah, that's.
It's not for Myrtle.
No.
not, well, yes, but,
It's really,
it's
it
some.
depends, isn't it?
Pardon?
It's a depends. Well, it is. If we have 5 roads and we got $500,000.
Well, according to the
And this
resolution,
fits underneath the umbrella of the money we have, we can do that, right?
But it does, like Myrtle Road would not fit under the umbrella,
I understand that, but the answer really is, it depends,
I guess.
okay?
Well,
Is it-
it could,
well,
in the sense that the township had a policy of putting a certain amount of money from this township-wide SAD into each neighborhood SAD. So, I think the scale was like, if it's a total cost of the SAD is $100,000 or more, then the township will put in $10,000 as the township's sort of, you know, contribution towards the cost of that SAD.
which,
We put in the document, and that, I think that was based on first come, first served.
yeah, there's only
every
3 of
year.
them
Well,
that per
when we
year.
did ours, it was first come, first serve, and that really stimulated us as a community to get that document signed.
I never heard the first come, first served.
Yeah, and first come got more money than second come and third come.
Oh,
The rest of
interesting.
them got.
And I did ask David Rowley that same question. He wasn't sure as to whether or not that money was still available and if that was still the policy. So it's still an open question in the document that we've been putting together.
But the real question is, okay, we get this note April 24th. Here it is May 4th, right? William Aikman. At our last meeting, we said, I wanted to send the folks that sent us letters, emails, a letter back to say we acknowledge what we hear, the issue, and here's some direction. Except, what do I tell Mr. Aikman at this point?
Sorry, your roads suck?
No.
No.
I know, I'm joking.
And-
No, I live in that neighborhood, so I totally understand
And the
what.
answer has got to be not, I feel your pain, it's got to be, here's the action.
Here's some options that you have as a person living on this road.
Yeah, in our neighborhood, we're not flat roads. We are hilly and we have no drainage. And so, and the road commission will not scrape your roads while in a rainy season, because the next day, it'll be potholed again. So this is,
Well, we're saying that's not his remedy anyway. We're saying Myrtle Avenue has been scraped, and as soon as it rains, it gets potholes, right?
Yeah,
So that's not the remedy.
Well, it sounds like one thing that the road commission might do is fill in the potholes with a limestone. It sounds, I mean, from what Linda read earlier, that's what they've been doing. And I actually have seen some places where they've done it.
that.
They did that. Just before the last meeting, I went up there to take a look at Park Ridge and Laurentide, and sure enough, it had been scraped.
Fine,
and
answer my question. How do I answer Mr. Aikman?
I don't know.
Well, I agree with Bob that I think we are getting emails, and we want people to feel that they've been heard. But we can't make any promises, and the local road advisory committee, under our charge from the township, doesn't even really have the right to tell them that they can call a neighborhood meeting and ask us to host it. So we need to come up with something, well, we would like to come up with something that we are allowed to say to them. And then the next step beyond that. I hear your suggestion about having a meeting for the Park Ridge neighborhood. Based on the numbers that we've gotten of letters, I think Streeter Road and probably Liberty Hills follow as well. I don't know that we, as the local road advisory committee, have the right to tell people, you know, hey, we can say, hey, you need to find a point person, but then the next step is contact Supervisor Hathaway so that we can have a meeting at Township Hall.
Yes, everything seems to flow to me.
But that's what I was trying to avoid, though,
Yeah.
because you got more stuff to do.
Well, I want to help. I think that the part of the problem that Scio Township has, and it's not just a problem that I'm experiencing, I think it's been happening for years, is that there's a lot of need for government services of various types, and roads, you know, are really, that's an intensive kind of coaching, I guess, that, you know, solve that problem. But the township has to work in partnership with the neighbors, and so unless you have somebody who's a real go-getter, you know, you can run into a problem where things can sort of founder. And I think, you know, in some ways, that's what happened in the Railroad East Delhi situation, is you had people who said, oh, we want to pave it, and then, you know, for whatever reason, it just sort of went into limbo, and the question wasn't really presented to the neighborhood in a way that the neighborhood could talk about it. Instead, it just turned, well, we don't have to go into all the detail, but if you move more quickly to a meeting where people can sit down and talk things through together, I think you can find out whether there's support for an SAD, or what kind of an SAD would meet with support from the neighborhood. And that's where I think the township might be able to play a role, pulling people together, you know, sort of hosting these kinds of discussions and sort of getting them launched. And if emerging from that initial discussion, you had one or two people who were willing to sort of play that role of sort of moving things forward, it might move along to paving, or at least remediation, whatever outcome the neighborhood chose.
Well, our resolution, we're only a recommending board to the, or committee to the board. We really don't have the jurisdiction or the authority to, I mean, all of us have agreed, I think to connect with the residents. Yeah, but as far as our resolution, it's just, we're supposed to, from what I understood, is work on, you know, looking at the different aspects, the SAD and all of that, but.
Well, you're right. You could recommend to the board, this is a need that the township has to, you know, sort of create some mechanism for receiving these, you know, we don't feel that it's appropriate for our committee to play that role. Or you could say, you know, we're willing to play this role of, you know, helping people set up an initial meeting, because, you know, really, until the SAD petition is circulated and comes to the board, you're not doing it. You know, it's not like you're saying there should be an SAD or there shouldn't be an SAD. You're just helping people get started on that process.
So we're just providing the educational like packet or whatever, and then that's also benefits the board, because you could just look at the process and say, okay, this is what we need to do. But I think, Bob, you were kind of stuck. Well, David, you know, Rowley has left, so who, I mean, and then who do we send them to? Who's the,
Yeah,
would that be?
That is a challenge we have right now.
It's kind of circular, we keep going.
That's a very good way of describing it, and we'd love to break out of that rut. It sounds like Supervisor Hathaway is suggesting that perhaps the group here make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. Are we willing to facilitate neighborhood meetings? I know that I'm not particularly well versed on what to tell them. I can certainly book the room and check with the assessor to make sure that, but I don't know if the township is going to want to send out a 50-cent stamp to every person in the Laurentide, Park Ridge, Roseland neighborhood, or how.
Well, that's one of the things I asked the assessor's office about. I think the role that they've played in the past is, somebody says, okay, there's interest in an SAD along this road or these roads. What are the parcels? Can you pull a list? And they can, so that we can mail to these people. And the township, I think, would, I think that's an understandable kind of cost. It's not that high to send out a mailing saying, there's a public meeting for your neighborhood to discuss the possibility of, road improvements, such and such a date at Township Hall. And, however you guys want to, think it through and sort of structure it, I think that would be a big help, to people in neighborhoods that have a real situation with their road. I mean, earlier, I think, was it Pam Boyd was saying that in her comment that she couldn't understand this reference to solicitation. And she said that her road was paved in 1992. I think probably what that was, I'm guessing, because Lou did this from time to time, he would drive around, he'd look at the condition of roads in a neighborhood, and if he thought, in his opinion, it was due for repaving, he'd go to the assessor, he'd get a list of parcels, and he'd send a mailing out to say, is there anyone who's interested in talking about repaving your neighborhood? And I'm guessing that's what he meant, what he's referring to.
That's what he did.
Yeah.
And I went to several of those meetings with him, and, some of them we made progress, and others of them, it was clear they were not ready. And one community said, I know the governor, I'm gonna call him and he'll take care of it. Nothing happened. But at least the neighborhood has sorted it out.
Yeah.
For good or for bad. There may be divisions that happen in the neighborhood, but at least everybody understands how it happened that we are getting improved roads or we are not.
Right.
And we made a decision as a community.
Right, that's it. It's like a little mini democracy, neighborhood level democracy, and it could result in a neighborhood choosing to pursue an SAD or rejecting it.
You just brought up what Pam Boyd said about they had an SAD back in the day, whatever day that was. And that brings up a good point because there's two case laws. This one's from Detroit, the city of Detroit, and there's another one that from 1933 or 1908 or something, and this one's from 1993. And they're both basically the same thing. The principle upon which abutting owners are charged with the expense of paving the street in the first instance is that the property is benefited by the pavement. After the improvement has once been made, care belongs to the entire public, and it must be kept in repair and in condition, or widened or improved in any manner by the public and not at the expense of the owners. So that means once the improvement is done, paid by the property owners, the municipality, the public, must take care of it from there. So like in Pam's neighborhood, Pam Boyd's neighborhood, if they've already had an SAD, then it's up to the public to pay for that, any improvements from there on. Because once a pavement, a road is paved, that is a special benefit to those property owners, and it increases the value of their property. But from there on, another pavement is not going to increase the benefit of or the value of their property.
I'm not sure that case
There's two of them.
still holds, because otherwise the township or some government entity would be responsible for repaving any neighborhood
The public,
road that, you know, where the pavement deteriorates, and pavement does deteriorate.
right, but when it comes to special assessments, I mean, there's a Michigan Property Consultants, Joe Turner, he wrote an article, he's an expert on this, special assessments and ad valorem tax. So that's where it gets a little iffy. And I would like to actually talk with Joe Turner and see his opinions on these, because if there's case law, then, yeah. So that would bring up a whole nother can of worms, because if that's the case, then our township-wide SAD would have to be expanded to cover the improvements.
Yeah.
Take a step back and at least, rather than getting the nuances, I still think we have to get back into the how do we respond, and at this point, we still don't have a good way of responding other than, I'm sorry, and that's not really acceptable.
Well, I think the way that I respond to some of the folks who are coming to me, and I started to direct them to the Roads Advisory Committee, in part, is to say, look, there's on the Road Commission website, there's an option for reporting a problem with a road.
Yes, I think, click here.
Yeah, right.
We want to make it easier.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So exactly. So if you were writing back an email to somebody, you could provide the link to the road
And
commission.
here is the schedule for Scio Township roads.
Right, and you could also say, I mean, you could refer to the things that the township is investing in. You could say, here's the list of projects that the township is supporting for this year. The township, of course, is also partnering with the road commission on the annual dust control, because that's going to be a concern, you know, within a few months, well, within a few weeks probably. So there's options that you can offer people that are sort of in your first category, Bob, the sort of the repair and maintenance.
We sort of tentacles out all sorts of places. This, I think, gets directly back to what your ultimate question was, which is, how do I come up with almost a generic letter of those items?
Right.
This is, at the moment, the best we can do for
But I'm
you.
not sure that's satisfying.
It's not gonna be satisfying.
Okay?
Well, maybe if their road is one of the projects.
If it, well, it
Well,
could,
yeah, if it is.
Yeah.
But like this one, and your answer is here too, to Lisa, I guess. It was. It seems to me, my answer to her would be, it appears that the neighborhood needs to come together and decide how they want to remedy the situation. Now, we're saying we would facilitate a meeting with your neighbors. What you need to do is get some spokespeople that are willing to take this on and actually go door to door and say, hey, are we as a neighborhood willing to do something to our street? And if that's the case, then we'll facilitate a meeting and talk about potential, actions. That would be the answer that I would like to give to Lisa in this case. An actionable answer.
Yeah.
Not tell her, I'm doing dust control here and I'm doing this there and all. Nobody cares about that. It's what's in it for me.
Well, you never know. I mean, there's some neighborhoods where that could be crucial. Delhi Court.
But it doesn't answer the pothole and rut in the note.
I think like for that, the document might come in use when we're done with it. The other situation I want is situation number one, there's bad potholes. Do whatever it is to the road, and I don't know, as a committee, I kind of want to make a difference, and so I want to be able to go and say, yeah, call Wash Eng Road Commission, they'll come out and do it. So I think by prescribing some different scenarios, we can have kind of a formulaic response to these kind of questions. Won't always be a perfect response, but it will move things in the right direction. So, I don't know, I just see us building collateral to get better at doing that.
I think the committee here, we need to break down the different types of roads first. You know, if this is a primary road, that's definitely, if it's a local gravel, if it's a private, and I've already done, I broke down a lot, I don't have the newer roads, but I have this all in file. I broke every road down. And then the, what is it, the local, I don't know, the connector roads, collector roads, which we already have in this list.
Yeah.
So if they contact us, Myrtle is a local gravel road. So that would right now fall under the Washtenaw County Road Commission and their cycle for scraping and dusting and whatnot. So we could get from the Road Commission a list of their schedule for these local gravel roads. I don't believe there's one, there's no primary gravel. Okay, that's right. So there are connector roads that are gravel, like Streeter, right? And then there's paved, like Pratt. And then we have our local gravel and our local paved. So those would fall under the more of the neighborhood roads.
Part of Brad's paved, part of it's not.
So,
So towards Wagner.
Roy has the basis of this, and I was really hoping he was going to be here tonight, because I really want my hands on his Excel spreadsheet. Because I think that's all we need. And we map out all the roads, we map out what they are, we put a filter on, and then we've got a tool that we can use that makes us a little bit more intelligent than we are right now.
Yeah.
You could almost
And-
reuse the list that the township created from 2012, because, I mean, the fact is, you have to redo the roads every so often.
So some of that spreadsheet will be on that reoccurring maintenance they talked about, but some of it won't, but
Linda's got it.
Yeah.
So
You got it?
what is that, Linda?
This is the spreadsheet I think Ian's talking about. So Roy went back and said in 2010, money was spent on, Knight Road.
yeah.
And so it's been 12 years, nothing's been spent since then. So he actually compiled the Washtenaw County Road Commission work that had been done, the money that was spent year by year on the local roads, so that you can see it all in one graph.
Yep.
And then from that, you can extrapolate, you know, it's been quite a while, where they didn't really spend very much money when they did do the work. And so there's a number of pieces. I still like the idea of the break it down. Bob, what do you think about if somebody sends us a letter and they're on Myrtle, you can figure out from one of the lists that we have, you know, Myrtle is a local road. It's not a connector. It's not a private road. Okay, so now in that chart, you know that you can go down this way. You can ask them, they've said the road condition is poor. All right, well, if you've got bad potholes, contact the Washtenaw County Road Commission. If you'd like to establish more work to be done, we need a point person in your neighborhood, and let's set up a neighborhood meeting, help us do that. And that gives them a choice and an action. Or they may choose to do nothing, and that is also an action. But it's better than sorry, and it's better than we've received your email.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe we could have
So we
3
need a flow
templates.
chart.
Say
We need
again.
a flow chart.
Yep.
It's a connector road, it's a local road, it's a private road. If then.
We actually talked about having a map and being able to click on the roads and see what kind they were. That was Jonathan Greenberg's suggestion, so.
And Jonathan volunteered to help us with that, but
Yep.
we've got some gathering to do before we get that far.
Yeah, we
So
do.
we are able to respond generically to these. If at the point the citizens say they would like to have a meeting, do we have them contact us and then we send a letter of recommendation to the board of trustees saying this neighborhood has established strong interest in having a meeting, we'd like to request the assessor send out a mailing to the residents.
I don't think it should be
Okay,
a
Kathy?
board level, it doesn't have to be a board level decision to have that initial meeting. I mean, and I guess the question is there someone or some people serving on the committee who are sort of willing to sort of take on being the person who sort of walks that request to the assessor's office to get the list of people, addresses to whom the mailing would go? I think actually, Bob, a moment ago, you were saying going door to door. I think to the degree that somebody up front is willing to get really, roll up their sleeves and get really involved, it'll be a much more successful meeting than if you just send out a mailing. If someone, has a flyer and is willing to go and put them on the doors or actually go and knock and talk with their neighbors, it'll get everything off to a much more productive start, because you really want to have everyone involved in that conversation. And my own experience years ago, 2012, we had that meeting here, and what was the turning point was the folks who lived at the corner of Rose Drive and Wagner spoke first and said that they favored paving the entire length of Rose Drive. So here you have the person who, or the property owner who you would think would have the least interest in paying for, paving the extent, but they started off the conversation by putting that out there on the table, and it made the rest of the conversation go so much better that they had already sort of, made that clear that they supported that. And it's not always going to work out that way, but until you get everybody there and you start the conversation, you don't know.
Well, I've always found 80% of solving a problem is framing the issue correctly. So you lay out what the issue is, make sure everybody agrees on that's the issue, and then you have at it, then it really becomes easy to solve.
That being the case, and that it is still spring, and I anticipate we'll get another 5 to 10 letters this month.
So why don't we start with just the regular spring pothole emails and have a template for that? And we could even talk with the road commission. Rory's not here, so talk with the road commission about the schedule in Scio Township. They do control the weather.
Well, we can show, these are the roads that are listed on, you'll be able to look at the Scio 2022 road agreement, see which roads are, and if they're one of those, then you can tell them, hey, you're due for some substantial road.
You mean for the township-wide SAD?
No, the road commission, in addition to the township-wide SAD, the road commission, 3 meetings ago, we had the 2022 Washington County Road Commission road agreement, that they were asking the township to pay for part of it, they would pay for part of it.
Yeah,
And there
okay.
was a specific list of roads that had been identified that the county was going to work on this year. We made a recommendation to the Board of Trustees that they fund the local roads listed in that road agreement, and Roy Townsend sent me a note that said that on the May agenda for the road commission, they do plan to accept the township's budget proposal. The township has said they will pay their portion, and the road commission is then going to sign the agreement and do those jobs this year. So we succeeded on a small level.
Well, and I think that something to bear in mind for this committee is that the earlier that a municipality, a township, gets its agreement approved, whatever it chooses to do, and sent back to the road commission, the sooner the work occurs. So there is kind of a queue that you can get into by acting promptly. And I think there, if there's a way that sort of Scio Township can sort of gear up to, hit the ground running every year, I think that will serve our purposes well. Otherwise, you're waiting for your road projects to get done at the end of the construction season and crossing your fingers and hoping that the weather doesn't negate your your agreement.
So that's for dust control and,
Those are
Yeah,
road
there's I
improvements.
think a total of
Dust
9
control
projects.
is additional.
So there's North Delhi Road, Huron River Drive, West Delhi Road, Marshall Road, Baker Road to Parker, Marshall Road, Zeeb Road to the end of the pavement, west of Marshall Court, Park Road, Stabler Road to Liberty Road, Streeter Road, Scio Church Road, Liberty Road, Stag's Leap Lane to Honey Run Drive, Knight Road, Scio Church to Liberty Road, and then there's dust control, the annual dust control. So that's the list that you guys recommended that the board
Yeah.
Go back to
fund.
the February
So-
2nd meeting.
right,
It was
but
part of
what the
that.
roads that he, Supervisor Hathaway just listed were the connector collector roads, I think except for Marshall Court.
Well, it's, Marshall Court is sort of the
I
end
believe
point.
that is
It's
the
not
first
Marshall Court, it's sort of Marshall Road.
Up to, oh, you said,
So-
I'm sorry,
so like
up
to
to,
that
so not Marshall
intersection,
Court. Yeah, so those roads are under they're paid for through our township-wide special assessment district.
Yes,
Okay.
with some partnering matching funds from the road commission.
Correct.
But
50/50.
But, well, it would have to be at least 50/50, but the township has usually spent more than that, so that it's not a 50/50 match, but, you know, the road commission, still, there's a benefit to having the road commission do the work.
So the dust control, that's an extra, where does that money come from?
Well, traditionally, I learned the township has funded dust control out of the general fund, and these other it's half of the dust control cost out of the general fund, and the rest of the projects, it is paid for out of the roads, the township-wide road SAD. So that's, I believe, how we did it this time. And I think the culvert project is really a road project, but it got put into the budget under another fund, under drain. And then the other second agreement was sort of focused on the side streets off of Jackson, and the DDA board chose to focus on Dino Drive and put up half of the cost from DDA funds, and then the DDA has been approaching the property owners on Dino Drive to try and get them to pony up and pay a share of that cost. But the idea is that then it will be up to the township board whether to pay the remainder of the cost of the Dino Drive paving, repaving.
Okay, that's a whole other conversation.
Taxpayers don't like to pay for business roads. Sorry, it's not public comment time.
Okay, so
Okay, so the other roads, like Myrtle and those other ones, are not covered under this 2022 agreement.
No.
So that's, okay, so that's what I
I was trying to get to identify what classification they are, and if they are something that can be touched.
The road classification then determines what the rest of the letter says.
Exactly.
Right, so it could be that depending on what the road is,
Right.
it's eligible for this committee to recommend that it be included.
Right, and that's
Yeah,
when I think others have set just a simple flow
Yep,
chart. If
yep.
this, then that, cascade, we give them what we can, and
Does anyone have time to work on the flow chart? I have lots of documents that could help, but I'm not, this next 6 weeks are not a period of time where I have extra time to do it.
and it may be that, I don't know, and maybe you, in your conversations, Jillian, with the road commission, you've touched on this, but it may be that, you know, you can ask them to generate a list, you know, it may be, you know, a few keystrokes for them to say, oh, here's the list of this category of roads in Scio Township, and here's, you know, and here's a breakdown of these other category of roads.
Well, Roy has a list of projects that were done at it, right? Isn't that what we were just looking at? Okay, so, I mean, I have files at home that break down the different, I don't have private. I don't know if anybody has a list. Does the township have a list of private roads? They must, because they have to approve a private road.
We have the former road committee's list of private roads.
And actually, I'm
There's more.
glad you brought that up again, because it's another question for the committee. What do you how do you want to handle private roads? Now, the township in the past has occasionally done SADs for private roads. Merlin Way is a current one right now. So the only difference, I think, in how we treat them is that the township won't make that contribution of township funds from the SAD, the township-wide SAD, to an SAD for improving a private road. So Merlin Way didn't get any additional money from the township, but the township is still sort of overseeing the collection of the SAD from the Merlin property owners in making it happen.
Yeah, public money cannot pay for that because it is a private, but it's like the township is kind of the bank and the
Facilitator.
yes, thank you.
No, that's a good term, facilitator. Yeah.
All right, well,
Okay.
moving,
Well, I know that there is a neighborhood, I don't know if it's in here yet, but I've had some recent communications with people who live on Waterman and what's the intersection? It's kind of complicated. There's Leroy, Waterman, and then Leroy got renamed Cherrywood, I think, going the other way. So that neighborhood, those are private roads, and there's some interest, at least among some people living along there, in an SAD.
all right, well, we've got, as usual, more on our plate than we know what to do.
Linda, I'd like to go back to one thing.
Sure, Patrick.
This is in regard to maintenance. With that collector road SAD, there is money for maintenance. Every year or two, somebody comes through, a company comes through and fills in cracks in the road and all of that, and that's a commitment that was made as part of the collector road to do maintenance on all of those roads that participated in the collector road SAD.
That is if they're paved. And there's
All the
only,
collector roads, I guess other than the street are paved, yes. If you paid to have, I'm not understanding the looks on your face.
okay, sorry, so.
You're getting me this.
No, because there's a lot to this, right? So we're gonna have to break it down. Okay, so the township-wide SAD for the collector roads,
Yeah.
there is money there for maintenance for the paved roads, so like Pratt, and whatever that stuff is, they put in the cracks.
Right, exactly right.
Right, and then the rest of them are gravel, so they would be in the maintenance,
I don't know what kind of maintenance gets done on those, it's a fair question.
yeah.
You know. But you were just saying, I think you're implying that there was a maintenance done, and there is some. That's what I heard.
There's actually a commitment for some ongoing maintenance for even the neighborhood SAD.
Right, so our neighborhood, like I said, every year or two, they come through and fill in the cracks.
But yours was, your SAD was under the road commission. That's what,
That was,
2011?
it's 2011, yeah.
Yeah, so that was before, I called the road commission looking for histories, on their SAD. They only go back 7 years, and since, they only had 3 going back to 2009, and one was the Uplands area, or no, he called it, it was the Uplands.
Yeah.
So that was, one of my questions was, if you had an SAD under the road commission, would they still be doing the maintenance? Or if you had a road SAD under the township, would they be doing the maintenance? You know, because again, there's so many different aspects to all of this. And when the road commission had the jurisdiction over all of our roads and the SADs, how is that different than now? Right, see,
It's a big question. I want to
Yeah,
get back
okay.
to Bob's original point and the fact that Supervisor Hathaway is very busy and we don't currently have a township administrator that we can shoot things to. Do we want to try and put together a spreadsheet? Or Bob, do you want to fly by the seat of your pants on this for a month until we can figure out a spreadsheet and put together a response to people that says, you
Yeah.
know, potholes, or find a couple of people in your neighborhood that are willing to act?
Yeah, I could answer some of these emails like that.
I would really like to send out something.
Yeah.
And-
But they'll have to be individual emails, not, and at first we talked about a mass to everybody, but then as I started to think about it and write it, I said, I can't do that. So,
Well, it doesn't seem to make sense. I think we're headed in a great direction. We've got a little bit more work to do on it. I really would like to talk about the document that, the original local roads primer document that Ian has been working on for refinement. Ian, do you have any questions that, you know, Supervisor Hathaway might help you with as far as fill in the blanks? That document was originally a Lou Kidder document.
Is that this one?
It's not the one that was attached to this packet. It was from 2 meetings
No.
previous. Lou Kidder had put together a primer, and it was actually something that was done, I think, with the previous road commission.
Boy, that may have been the basis for the article in the.
Very much so.
exactly,
Yes,
that was
very
the
much
article.
Yeah.
We just,
We were trying to
tweaked
get
it
something to
into
put,
the-
to post on the
Right.
website so that we had something to point people to. But it says, you know, at this point, contact the township administrator for help.
Well, I mean, this is one of the questions that the township has been wrestling with, is the staffing question. And one of the positions that was, you know, sort of part of the mix that, I don't know, we may still get a recommendation from David Rowley at our meeting next week, I don't know, was a project manager position. And I think at least part of the job description, one element of the job description was to help with SADs. There was a recognition.
We talked about that being the administrator, we talked about it being the project manager. We never.
I know, we haven't, it's an unresolved question, but I think, you know, one of the things that Lou Kidder said to me, you know, over a year ago was, township really needs to have somebody who works for the township who sort of plays this role. It can't really work to have volunteers do it. I mean, Lou sort of shouldered it for a long, long time, but I mean, I think, you know, we've seen that, you know, there's benefits of having someone like Lou do that, but there's also downsides to it.
Was there a resolution for the project manager?
It was posted. The position was actually posted.
It was approved by the board?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we just.
It was approved in August last year, and we posted it, and my understanding is that we didn't get qualified candidates. Now, I don't know, because then I learned of a candidate who seemed to me would have been a strong candidate, but I never knew that she had applied. So I don't know exactly what happened. I think, you know, we need to sort of go back to that position. There's a number of other positions, and I don't know that David had time to do that before, you know, or in time for our next meeting.
Would that go through, is it the Michigan Township Association that has a section for employment, or townships looking for employees? is,
I don't know if that's the best place to post it, but if we repost it, I think we should look at every place where we could put it. I mean, some positions are sort of, that are more established, like township administrator or township manager. I can see that, posting that through the Michigan Township Association or maybe the Michigan Municipal League. But a project manager position, I'm not sure is that's the best place.
so
Find
for right now, how can we help our residents without a
Yeah,
project
sorry,
manager?
I got off into the larger
No,
question.
because
but-
it's a much needed position.
I think for now, if there's volunteers on the committee who are willing to sort of work with somebody like Lisa Tulin or Amy Milanovich, or somebody who wants to pull together Park Ridge neighbors for a discussion to see if they can sort of, find what sort of sweet spot there is where there's a majority support for making improvements to that road. That would be great. It's of all of these, I think it's probably I don't know if it's the most ripe for having that kind of conversation, but it seems like there's motivation there among at least some of the people who live on Park Ridge to revisit the question.
How about this? And please, everybody, throw in your ideas here. I'm sorry, Linda, is this okay? And to go ahead. So we've identified 3 different areas. First of all, break down the roads and flow chart. And then we have 9 committee members. And 2, if we could buddy up, and let's say Bob and I work on the local roads as far as working with the road commission and the potholes and whatnot. 2 others buddy up about the township-wide SAD. You and, I think, Patrick, aren't you working with Ian on this?
And we have, the TAP has a real interest in this, and Roy and I and another member of the committee would like, we've suggested that an ad hoc, what's the look for?
No, I'm
Coordination of committees.
Yeah, I'm trying to read.
sorry, part of it, no, my mind, this is how my mind works. I'm putting it together,
I'm looking at
sorry.
you and I'm getting really confused.
Oh, no. It's not you, I'm just processing.
So what we'd like to do is set up an ad hoc joint committee between TAP and local roads, because we share a real interest in this, and put together a resolution for the Board of Trustees ultimately to consider for a renewal of the local connector roads.
You've jumped
Yeah,
ahead,
that's-
Patrick.
What's that?
You've jumped ahead.
Yeah, no,
This is about divvying up the roads and how do we respond.
yeah, so you are creating
This is the big
the
response.
document, the process document?
I have a document that's kind of like a primer for anybody who wants to start doing this process in a neighborhood. And one of the things it says is when the leadership in your community begins to consider an SAD, you should contact. And it starts just putting some of the mechanisms in place.
Okay, so what if there were 2 committee members that would work with those neighborhoods, depending on how many SADs, but to start with 1, and then go through the process with them, but also to have checks and balances, bring it back to the committee so we all know we're on the same page. And then, let's say Bob and I mean, he may not want to work with me, but it's okay. But as far as the local roads and getting the road commission, at least that part of it, then we can come back to the committee and have reports. So, because there's a lot of things that need to be done, but we're just talking about all of this, and there's a lot here. And then the third part would be the township, what was the other one? The neighborhood SADs, the township-wide SAD, because we're supposed to have a renewal. So that's another
That's what I was
project.
just talking
Oh,
about.
that's the renewal, okay, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we have 9 members, right?
Yes,
Yes,
and Rakesh and
Roy.
Roy.
Roy, I think be willing to help. Everyone has their specific interests. So Jillian, would you put together a list of those things, and we'll try and get that on the next meeting, and we'll vote? And see if we can assign things to people. Would you be willing to sort of break that up into those quadrants so that we had a reasonable chunk of work for,
Okay.
and we'll see if we can make that
What
happen.
you could do, I mean, it's not like it's a policy decision. I mean, you guys are basically just sort of divvying up tasks. You could send out that list and see if people raised their hand and said, I'll work on this, and that might solve the whole thing.
In the interim.
Yeah, and if we work together in small teams, it won't be so burdensome, because, you know, we're all learning, there's a lot here. And I will look at, in my records for the breakdown of the different roads. And if somebody could find the private roads, we're gonna have to have something separate for private roads, just in case.
I'd put it in the same spreadsheet.
Well, that's fine, but as long as they're on their,
Just classify it as private, and then we can filter all the data.
Can we use this document for the private roads, which is the old road commission road condition index? It's got
Yeah.
all of the roads in the township listed, and it pulls them out as private, local, or connector.
and we have new roads as well that need to be,
It would need to be added,
Yeah.
but this is a good start for what it is.
Do
And
you have that digitally?
yes, I think it was part of maybe the January packet, so I'd go back and find it.
Doesn't look
It's
familiar.
actually on, you know what, it's actually on our website, under our local roads. If you go to the Scio website, you go to the roads committee, there is a local roads index. I think it's our LRI that's in there, and you can click on the tab and it'll print this for you. It's right on the website. Jillian's correct, we've got some roads that have been established, obviously, since 2014, and this is a good jump.
And when people write to the website and they write to the Roads Advisory Committee email address, does it go to everybody?
It goes to everyone.
So what I'd suggest is, instead of starting to put out individuals' emails as points of contact, is just to continue to have contacts flow through that email address, and then once everyone is clear about sort of what pieces they're taking, then whoever is sort of fielding that particular communication can sort of respond to it in that way. As there's turnover on the committee, you don't have to worry about, changing, individual points of contact. It's all sort of flowing through that one email address.
Jillian, would you give that to Bob if
and then Linda, you will be able to check up, like, if there may be an email, maybe until we get established, who would this go to, which team?
and we'll figure that out. And as Patrick said, he and Roy are both on TAP. And they have, with a third member of TAP, volunteered to establish an interaction committee with our local roads committee. So, kind of by default, Patrick, you and Roy are, both. We need another one, anyway, from local roads committee for that TAP collaboration. I think we've got 3 coming from TAP, 2 of whom are Patrick and Roy. We've got, for the concept of how can we push or how do we establish the idea of the renewal of the township-wide SAD for 2023.
So there's a third member on TAP, or there's a third member here?
There's a third
The
member
member
on
on
TAP.
tap,
Who's that third member?
Steve Kern.
Oh. He's new, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Been with us for a few months.
Okay.
I don't know how many members you were hoping for from roads committee.
I think 1 or 2.
Can't be any more than 2 because then we have a quorum.
Oh, there you go.
All right, and so that kind of fills in that blank a little bit. All right. So I had put under new business, create a timeline for renewal. I think that this sort of answered the beginning step of that. We had Trustee Palmer speak at our last meeting, and she gave us some good input about
There's no such
why
thing.
the SAD, township-wide SAD was charged the way it was originally and how that might be beneficial to just continue the same process if we were to ask for it to happen again in 2023. We understand that the last collection of funds will be this winter tax, and then it's not established as a 2023, it would just die a death. We do have some funds left in the township-wide SAD, but no more would be collected. So we don't really have an answer to Ian's local road primer. Is there anything else we can do to help you with that, Ian?
I don't think it's a million miles away, but I made some notes tonight, the things that I think I should add to it, which includes some examples, like the 3 examples that were hung out there tonight. And then Patrick, maybe you should look over it again at some point.
Great, I'd be
Is
glad
that
to.
okay?
You want to do a quick tweak and then I'll look at it?
Yeah, I haven't really touched it. This last month's been pretty horrendous, but I mean, I did meet with David Rowley and he was kind of conceptually okay with it, didn't have any issues. And the questions I had, he answered, so I don't know how much more refinement it needs.
Well, and it doesn't have to be the final document for all ages. Our goal is to have it posted on the Scio website under the Roads Committee as a primer for how to do an SAD.
Yep.
It at least is a beginning of a roadmap.
Yeah. We should also have a packet to give to
Well, that's what I was just going to
Yeah,
segue.
so
So
have
you
it-
were saying the Drain Commission has a great packet. Let me see if I can
yes.
get a hold of it.
Yeah, I did call, and they have a few different packets depending on the project. But I talked with, I think her name was Christine, but I'm gonna call Steve, Scott Miller. He's the one that did our SAD, and he will know. But the one that we had was very simple. I think it could be easy
It's
to
lovely
cut.
to have a chart that you can go
Yeah.
through and check items on.
Yep,
I agree.
absolutely.
We're a little ways away from that, but that would be a good template to use.
I have a question regarding, it says unfinished business, so create a timeline for the renewal of the township-wide SAD, and then under unfinished business, connect with TAP for support of the proposed millage.
Well, it's the committee trying to figure out, it had been suggested by Patrick that TAP was interested in collaborating with us. TAP actually beat us to it at their last meeting and established members who would be willing to meet with the road advisory committee.
Well, right, but it's millage or SAD?
I misspoke, millage. SAD.
Okay, so
There's
that's,
a typo.
sorry, okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Can I ask a question, Will? So we talked earlier about the incentive for communities to do the SAD.
You mean for the neighborhood?
Neighborhood communities, I'm sorry, right, to do the SADs. I think it kind of disappeared, I don't know. Do you have a sense of how we should approach that?
Someone, maybe it was Ian, asked this question, and I don't know where it's enshrined in policy, but when we were working on the SADs, the 4 SADs last year, actually we started in 2020, and some of them date back to 2018 or 2019, that policy was in place, and so it was part of the pitch to the folks who were organizing those, and it was handed down to me as sort of like, this is what we do.
Okay.
And there's, sort of the scale. If it's less than $100,000 cost, then you can get $8,000, then it's $10,000, and if it's over $200,000, you get $12,000. So that's as far as the.
So you think there would be, if we can assume that that's going to be okay again, or should there's a process to?
I don't know. I mean, those figures were established back in 2013 when the SAD was. I think. I don't know when they date from, but I think they date from. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, you could use the same figures, but, costs have gone up. I mean, maybe you guys could, it's up to you what you want to recommend.
But would they be paying, they've already paid into that though, so they're really not getting a discount.
Well, it's a way of the township pulling from that pot of money that is, levied on the entire township
Yeah.
and saying, if you folks, I mean, I think this is the logic of it. If you folks in this neighborhood are willing to spend your own money for an SAD to improve this road, that the township will, make this kind of allocation available to you to support your effort.
But not private.
It's
Right.
not for private roads, right?
Is this something that should be passed by you? I mean, the numbers are still, this is the primer, and the numbers are still in there. And David wasn't aware and said possibly remove, and so that's an open question for me.
Do you remember, were you around when, it would have predated when you went back on the board.
So I was 2004 through 2008, I was on the board, and then away for 8 years, and then back.
We could make a recommendation to the board.
Yeah.
Would that be
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
reinstated?
mean,
Would the
you guys have that role to say, well, we think this was a good idea, or we think this, the township should do away with it. It's up to you.
It seems to incentivize, because you
It
said
worked well for us.
Yeah.
Right, Kathy?
Yeah, Pat.
So,
Yeah, it was good.
should we pick the numbers up though? I mean,
I think that's a fair point.
I mean, costs have gone up. I mean, even since last year, we were lucky that we got to hold on to the prices that were agreed to last year for the work that's going on this year.
But if only 3 per year benefit from that, and then the 4th SAD comes along and the 5th, then they're not gonna get a benefit. They're not gonna get that incentive.
Well, I don't know how many SADs Scio Township has the bandwidth to handle in a given year. But, that's a good question. I was actually unaware that there was a ceiling on the number of SADs that could qualify in a given year.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it was in his, in the original, in his,
probably comes from Lou.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, when we did it, it was,
It
we got 25.
It probably occurred so rarely that you had more than 3 SADs in a year, I'm guessing,
Yeah, that's probably right.
that it was rarely a factor.
I agree.
well, could we just take that out? I mean, if there's 4,
I think you could just take it out. I mean, it seems to me that if people are, if there's 4 SADs in a year, and, why would you cut off one of them?
Yeah.
It just seems like, it seems kind of mean.
I don't think it'd be like 5 or 10 per
Let's-
year.
Let's put together a recommendation at the next meeting for the Board of Trustees and try and get in front of them for the June.
Well, we
meeting.
need to.
Yeah, I know it leaves Ian out to dry on this, but are you ready to post this month?
It can always get changed,
I guess that's true.
So I'll turn it around in
I'm the
a couple of
bottleneck.
days. What's that?
I'm the bottleneck right now.
Okay.
Ian, could you send the final draft to everybody so we could see it?
I mean, I don't think you can advertise changed numbers yet until the board, agrees to that. But it seems to me that there's kind of, however it originated, there's kind of a norm for the 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 figures. I don't know when the board approved that, but, that's been
I don't-
part of the practice for forever, as far as I know. But if this committee wanted to recommend increasing that, I think that's perfectly within your scope.
You would also formalize it.
Yes, we could, I think every once in a while, the board probably should look at the policies and revisit them and reapprove them.
And then I just wanted to circle back to something that Supervisor Hathaway said just a few minutes ago about how much bandwidth the township has for an SAD. 2 points. One, we do have 4 active SADs that are being performed in this year, 2 of which are happening literally right now. Daleview is in process and Merlin Way is in process. Part of that procedure is that there is it's been handed off, the construction will be done. At the end of the construction, because Wash Eng and Jillian have been assigned as the point person for all 4 of these particular SADs, there is the cleanup and the damage complaints and the finish up on the SADs, which after listening to a number of people and having some meetings about this, appear to be crucial to the success of the overall SAD. You want people to feel like they got what they paid for. And if their sprinkler heads were destroyed in the middle of this, and there is not response to them about how that's going to be, taken care of, they're unhappy, and it taints the process. The way that it's currently laid out, according to Joe Maynard, is that he gets a complaint from the neighborhood representative. He approaches it and then requests a repair out of the contingency fund from the Scio Supervisor. There's a contingency fund that's listed in the SAD. Each one has a small, 5% or something fund held back for destroyed mailboxes, damage, extrapolation. And then the supervisor reviews the repair request for approval. And I know that you are a very busy person and we still don't have a project manager, but please be aware, coming down the line several months from now, likely there will be a handful or more of requests. Joe Maynard will probably put them together in an email, and if you need help with those, let's try and make a success of the 4 that we do have on tap.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Thank you. And then for next year, we're queuing up people for SADs. If we've got a couple of meetings that, we will suggest, if Park Ridge comes around, if the people in Liberty Hills want to have a meeting, we may have a couple more SADs queued up for the 23 year.
You bring up a good point. There needs to be a time frame because somebody comes in August and says we want a SAD, and by the time you get through all the petitions and all of that, construction's won't be able to start. So if they want their SAD in a certain year or their roads paved in a certain year, they have to get it in by, January?
What I would say is whenever people come together and rally around and doing an SAD, I wouldn't sort of impose a schedule on them. I think I would just be, sort of straightforward with them and say, well, you're starting at this point, probably, you're looking at a process that's going to take this long. So you're, if you move it along briskly, you'll be in this construction season here.
Yeah, it boils down to the construction season though, when
Yeah.
it's going to be,
And there is a sample timeline that the previous road commission or committee had put together. That, yes, you're right, 31st of January was the suggestion for a sample line for an SAD project. And I think that would tie very nicely. I don't think even it's a part of the document you've got.
I don't think so.
I don't know if we want to add it or if it would be a piece. I have one here if you'd like it.
I think it would be helpful to give people at least a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then have a complete packet, so we're not
But
asking Linda for the extra.
One of the things I think that is good to remind ourselves over and over again when talking with people who are starting an SAD process is to be really cautious about making anything sound like a promise. Because there's so many factors that can come in, costs can change, material costs can go up, the engineering, like we were saying earlier, the engineering could turn a project that you think you understand as a certain, level into something that's astronomically more expensive. And so I think same with timeframes, there's just so many things that can change and are unpredictable. It's just better to sort of in some ways sort of brace people for the unpredictable.
These are the steps.
These are the steps that you'll have to go through. How long it takes, could be influenced by a lot of different things, but,
One of those things is you guys.
Yeah, a big factor, really a key factor is the determination and the organization of the people in the neighborhood.
Well, I was thinking more of the construction season, because if they're gonna have to, there's no way that they could fit something in after, or towards the end of a construction season. It was
Well,
that.
we tried last year and the weather just did not cooperate, and so we thought we might still get those projects underway
How's
last
it going
fall.
this year for you?
Well, that's another thing, yeah, they got started and then they had to delay the actual asphalt because of rain.
Well, okay, we'll take that into, this is called a sample timeline. It could also be a punch list of events and no dates included. But it's kind of nice, again, to just have a checklist. And it's the same exact points that are in the primer. It's just only a sentence as opposed to multiple.
There is a hard stop though for the construction season, I learned. I was told that it's when they stop dishing out the asphalt, but it's actually the start of deer hunting season.
Oh,
Oh, absolutely. All right. We had reports that were sent by Patrick Shields for the TAP. DDA hadn't met. Kathy Knol did not provide a board of trustees. She was too busy. And planning commission, Rakesh, we would love a planning commission if there's anything to report for the June meeting. Are we ready for public comment, or does anyone have anything else we need to throw on the table other than, I forgot, I was contacted by the Township. Does the RAC have anything we want to put in the July Scio newsletter?
we're working hard.
All right.
Be patient, we're
And then I think we had a email that was sent around. The Washington County Road Commission has a Zoom meeting on May 9, Monday at 11 a.m. It would be great if somebody had an opportunity to attend. I have a DDA meeting at that same period of time and am not able to. Is there anyone that could listen in on the Zoom meeting for the Washington County Road Commission?
I believe those are recorded and uploaded to their website.
That's probably true.
Is this the regular meeting?
It's not a regular meeting. It was something that came through to us. It's
Yeah, I forwarded.
prospective programs for the next year.
Yeah, I forwarded that. I think it's more meant to be sort of educational kind of thing. And I don't know, if someone wanted to learn sort of more generally about the road commission and its approach to, planning, I think it might be good to have somebody attend. Probably a lot more interesting than their regular meeting.
Well,
I'll listen.
that would be very helpful. And then,
Linda, I'd like to loop back around to your comment about the newsletter.
yes,
It may be that after we get this primer done, that be something, or a short version of it, be something that be put in the newsletter.
June 1 deadline
I
for
know,
the July.
it may not be maybe for the next issue.
Great. We can certainly tell them that's something we're teeing up.
Yep.
Can I allow the public comment for the end of the meeting? Is there anyone else that's got anything? Is there anyone present or online that would like to speak?
I'm just moving up here so you can hear better. Kathleen Brandt, Scio Township resident. A couple of things that I gleaned from your meeting that I wanted to comment on. The idea that that residents would be paying for business street SADs, I think is unconscionable. So there's mention of Dino Drive. There was not an agreement that it would be a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, that the DDA would pay 1/3, that the owners would pay 1/3, and Scio residents would pay 1/3. That was not an agreement from the DDA. As a taxpayer, I'd be greatly opposed to that. Any SAD that occurs for residence streets, the businesses are not paying for that. So why should resident taxpayers pay for a business street? So if that street is completely occupied by businesses, I don't think the township should be paying that out of their general fund. Another thing that I thought about when you're talking about project management for the SADs, currently Wash Eng Engineering is doing that project management. I think that raises that specific SAD's costs to have to pay for project management at a consulting rate versus having township staff that manages. And you could cost allocate to that SAD, but it's got to be at a cheaper rate than what Wash Eng Engineering is paying. And also, there was a point that if there was damage, I would think that the damage should first be investigated with the contractor. If they damage something, the project manager would evaluate if that was their error, and it wouldn't just necessarily be coming out of contingency funds for the people that are funding the SAD. And then also, in prior research, I have seen statute that says that when the township is considering constructing a sidewalk, and this is MCL 41.288A, which comes out of Act 246 of 1931, which is used for some of this funding. It says the township board shall hold a public meeting relative to the ordering of the sidewalk construction, repair, or maintenance, and shall notify property owners involved of the time and meeting and place of the meeting. So I think the board has approved the work on, what is it, Scio Ridge? Right, but I think the board needs to have a public hearing for this, the way I read this statute. 41.288A, bullet point number 2 states that. So not professing to be an expert on this statute, but on the face of it, it looks like you should have a public hearing for that.
Can you read the MCL again?
Yeah, it's 41.288A. This is in Act 246 of 1931, which Washtenaw County Road Commission references. But item number 2 talks about a public hearing. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone online that wishes to speak during public comment this evening? Seeing no hands raised on mine, I call it into the public comments. Are there any other members of the committee that would like to speak on any other topics before we adjourn?
Thank you for coming, Will.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I could participate.
Helps.
Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Ian, seconded by Kathleen Knol. Vote by ayes. Aye. This meeting adjourned at 8:30 p.m. Next meeting is June 1st, Wednesday.